Recording going. The recording is going.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. Welcome to the April 27th, 2021 board meeting for the OWASP Foundation. So in attendance, myself, Martin, Owen, Grant, Jubin, and Vandana. Bill is tardy, but we'll see if he makes it in time.
Bill did send his. Bill did say he would try to join the call, but he's going to be in the middle of nowhere, America.
Okay, so first order of agenda is to review the previous board meetings, to vote on the previous board meetings. So does anyone have any issues with the previous board minutes? Okay.
I had a question about the attendance list. It wasn't there. I don't know if you changed it. If there, because normally it was the number.
It was set up with a link that when I changed something, it didn't show up. So I had to fix it.
Okay. Yeah, I know that we have a separate attendance list, but I just wonder if it should be attendance also meant on the notes per board meeting. That was my question. Because in the past we had a board meeting, like now we had you call it attendance, and last time I was not attending, but it's not attendance list per meeting.
Not sure if I'll like. So this is the March minutes.
Well, yeah, it's now on. I see it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Any further questions? Okay. If not, we'll go for a vote to motion to approve March's minutes of meeting of minutes rather. So from order or C, folks. The first of all, Martin.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Owen.
Yes.
Jubin.
Yes.
Vandana.
Yes.
And that's a yes for myself. Okay. Getting Owen back in.
I'm just joining.
Item is,
Sorry, I was just going to say I'm joining twice, so I can have it on the big screen.
All right, no problem. So Andrew, do you want to start with the KPIs and the current project status?
Yeah, so the KPIs, we obviously did a membership drive in March, and the delta there was relatively small, just simply because coming off the back of a membership drive where we had a record number of people joining, it's still very pleasing that we've actually had a small increase this month. So pretty much we've exhausted the pool of people who wanted to join. So hopefully we can continue this momentum. Our next membership drive, we've just about completed the regional membership drive in to assist with the Indian brain break that we held. But we will know the performance of that shortly. Our next membership drive will be in concert with the 20th anniversary, and because of European holidays, we'll be announcing that at the beginning of July, giving people time to save up, because obviously we want it to culminate in the 20th anniversary. So we'll be running a lengthy lifetime membership campaign in the lead up to the 20th anniversary. I'd like to start thinking, we've changed to using Cloudflare rather than Google. This is the actual number of hits we had rather than the number of people who permit us to track them. That's a very different number. We don't obviously track them for any other purpose than just sheer numbers. What I'd like to do is actually bring this back. This is a very weak measurement of engagement with our community. I'd like to change to having KPIs that better reflect financial oversight and better reflect less operational matters and more mission related matters. So the number of active chapters, the number of active meetings, the number of active members, those things are much more important for our mission, and then whether or not we manage to hit our SLAs. If you've ever been on the receiving end of a complaint about us being slow, we can address that operationally. I don't think we need to report it every single month. I can certainly have Harold put it into his staff report rather than making it a major KPI for the board to take a note of. With that, I obviously have an executive director, Deboraki down there, but then there was the finance package, and I'm going to hand over to Tom for the finance report, and then we'll get back onto the executive director report.
Okay.
Sure, thank you, Andrew. I'm going to.
Sorry, Tom. Does anyone have any points on the KPIs before we continue? Okay. I had just one quick one, Andrew, which is obviously the reporting takes time and effort. So I would imagine that getting onto Copper, which we have, is part of the reasons why we're now able to get better KPIs with regards to membership engagement, right?
No, not really, but we're going to try and automate it. Every system that we have is an API-driven system. So eventually we do want to get to a position where we're able to do that. Harold has actually created a Slack channel command that gives us a member report, which makes it much easier to report members than in the past. I do want to improve that as we go forward. What I'd like to do, I don't know if you can see my little thing, is like little gauges that sort of suggest, are we doing okay or not so okay with common financial reporting metrics? And I'll work with Tom on how we can minimize the amount of time it takes for Tom to assist me with creating those graphs. I really want you to understand, are we doing okay from an operational reserves point of view? Do we have a good debt servicing ratio? Is our AR under control? The sorts of things the board should be concerned with. At the moment, you don't see them because you're getting information about the number of people who visit our website. And I don't think that's actually relevant to you. I'd much rather have our mission detailed and our financial oversight detailed.
Thank you, Andrew. Tom?
Sure. Thanks, everybody. Nice to see you all. I took over the screen. So the report was out last week. As usual, I'm not going to read all the way through it, but I'm going to point out a few things. So what you see here is a comparative balance sheet from March 31st of 20, comparing it to March 31st of 21. As we all know, our assets are down, our cash was down, but our liabilities are significantly down compared to last year. We've also driven up equity a little bit, which is a good thing in this environment. So I just want to keep everybody's eye on this, that we still have well over $1 million in cash at the end of March, which if you've read through the report, that leaves us with about 12 months of operating reserve. Again, we're holding steady with that. We've been floating between 11 and 13 months over the last 6 to 8 months, again, which is a good thing. Does anybody have any questions with regards to the balance sheet?
Does this include the 36,000 that is at Eventbrite, or is that recorded elsewhere?
So that's a great point, Andrew. It's not recorded in here. We need to set up a Eventbrite account within QuickBooks, and then I need to add that in there. So for next month, because you just made me aware of it, that unfortunately we've got those funds stuck there. That will come out when the event's over. We'll list those as an asset starting next month.
Cool.
We'll get
It may be
right.
It may be possible for us to retrieve that money at the end of May. So just hold on creating an account for it. But at the end of the day, if we can get it out at the end of May, that'd be great.
It'll come out after the end, whatever date the May event is, when that's over. So I think I'll check the date and I'll give it to you, Andrew and Tom.
Okay, yeah, and we'll add it in here in
Okay.
QuickBooks. It'll show up with the bank accounts. So we'll reconcile that every month because we'll get a statement from Eventbrite.
What I find it
Okay.
what I generally find interesting, so it's not so much about this report, is that our liabilities are down 400K, right?
Yes.
This is not only for conferences. So I wonder why we spend money, maybe not sufficient to our mission, but we spend money to create money. So we spend money to create conferences. So I think we as a board have to see we should make money to enable our mission, right? And other things, not conferences. So I think that's a good point for us as board to see if we spend money correctly or if we can spend it better.
Right, and Andrew keeps bringing that up, and he's absolutely right. I counsel all of my 501c3 clients to, make sure that the decisions you're making have some component of driving your mission.
Yeah.
Moving on to the board summary, and Sharif, I think I finally got what you were looking for, which is this section here of having a quarter to date view, even though it's the first quarter, so year to date and the first quarter are the same. But I will update this every month. So starting in May, I'll match it to Q2, have a month, have a quarter, have a year to date. I think that's what you were looking for, right, Sharif? Okay.
Thank you, Tom.
No problem. So, as you can see, we did a little better than our budget. Now, we budget on a annual basis, and then based on prior history, I spread it over the 12 months so that we at least have something to compare to. So there can be some timing issues. So if you look at this, the membership, we recognized more in March than the 1/12 that we did in the budget. So, from that perspective, we're, ahead of our income for the month of March. We're also under in expenses. A lot of it is here in events because our events are, online, and Kelly and the team are doing a great job keeping our expenses down. The only one that's over, again, is G&A and professional services, which you'll see it's over in the quarter and year to date, due unfortunately to some of the legal expenses we've been paying. Other than that, the other couple of accounts are negligible as far as being over, and we're, as usual, under what we estimated because we're trying to be really cognizant of spending on expenses. So again, you can look at the narrative that I have that I put into the email, but that's where we are month to date and year to date. We're ahead of our net income budget. The only other issue, again, is, and it's been this way for many years, is the chapter funds, which I keep, and the project funds that I try and keep on everybody's radar. So the chapter funds and the chapter funds for US and EU are basically flat month to month. Project balance is up a little bit, but that's good because we're taking donations for projects, which is, again, one of our missions. Again, like I said, we're also about 12 months of operating reserve. So those are the high points of the financials through the month of March. Does anybody have any questions before I continue?
Just to let the board know, there is actually a small commentary section down below on after the business in the discussion area on merchandise and taxes. Do you want to discuss that now, or do you want to wait until it's in the agenda?
Wait for the agenda, I think.
Let's wait until then.
Okay. Well, I have
That would
4
be
other
the
things I
recommendation.
just want to let everybody know about. We were successful in getting our DUNS number. They were a lot more streamlined than the last time I tried to do that process. So now Kelly can go out and work with a number of different clients because we do have a Dun & Bradstreet number. Andrew and I finally got the PPP1 forgiveness application submitted yesterday. Andrew, thank you for your help. Took a while, but we figured out how to do it. I'm also working on the PPP2 application. So by the next board meeting, we will have that long submitted because the portal's open until May 31st, but we're hoping to get that submitted as soon as possible. And then the last piece is, now that we've closed March, I'm gathering up all the data for the FY20 990, which the CPA is taking the extension. But I'm hoping to have a draft by the end of May so that we can get it, out to you all to review and then get it submitted before the end of June, as the final due date is November 15th. So
Just for background, can you quickly, for the recording, say what a PPP1 is?
sure. So the PPP is the Payroll Protection Plan subsidies through the federal government based on the amount of employees you have. So last year we were successful in getting the loan for $112,700, but we waited and the regulations eased quite a bit, and we were able to extend the recognition period from only 8 weeks to 24 weeks. So we completely used up the $112,700 on payroll alone, which made it easier for us to submit the IRS form 3508, which is the simplified one because we took less than 150,000. So all we had to do was to confirm that it was all used within that time period from May 1 to October 15th on payroll. And we got the note that Citizens Bank got it, Citizens Bank reviewed it, and they have passed it along to the Small Business Association, who, barring any serious oddities, should be allowing us our forgiveness as soon as possible because we met all the requirements. PPP2, which is the second phase of the payroll protection plan, we are also eligible because we're a 501c3, we have staff, and we can show the major requirement is a 25% reduction in gross revenue, 1 quarter of 2019 to 1 quarter of 2020. Third quarter of 2019, we're down 60 to 65% because in 19, we had the face-to-face event in September. This past year, we had the virtual event in October. I've already asked the Small Business Association, timing doesn't matter. All you have to do is be able to show, which we can, we're down quarter to quarter more than 25%. So I'm getting the reports from Insperity on the payroll, and then we'll submit that to Citizens and hopefully get another 6 figures to help us make it through this year.
That's excellent news, Tom. Thank you.
You're welcome. Does that answer what PPP is? Okay.
Just what, yeah.
Okay.
So
Any other questions that I can
I
answer
do-
for anybody? Hey, Sharif.
I do have one, but maybe down to Andrew as well. So one of the things that jumped out to me as well, which I was, pleasantly surprised, is on the donations. So we were budgeting only 3,000. It's up to 15,000. Andrew, can you speak a little bit to that? Where the jump is? You seeing? Is it just people on the site providing
these are
donations?
these are semi-restricted donations to projects such as the core rule set and the SAM project. We will need to go through and properly categorize these once we've got grants up and running, which will come as part of the actual finance reform. But for the moment, they're categorized as donations. We're just trying to keep track of them. Once we've actually worked out, I'd rather not put them into the project balances at this point, but that may be the right choice for those figures.
We're putting them potentially as restricted gifts so we understand where it's going, because that also goes directly to the mission of the foundation.
Right. So Sharif, you can see here that this amount of money came in for the projects, this amount of money came in for the chapters. If you look at our detailed balance sheet, what we did last year through the audit was we moved what the project balances were at that point in time and put it into our net restricted assets. So we've got to true this up for 2020, but we've already got the majority of it designated. So I'll work with Andrew and we'll get that trued up. But all of this information is inside of the financial package. If anybody has any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Happy to answer anything I can. With that, I'm going to stop sharing and turn it back over to you all.
Okay, I'll go back. So Andrew, next up is the project updates.
Okay. Do you want me to share?
I'm sharing my screen.
Okay. So let me just get rid of my own share. So we actually have had a very busy month. We've done a lot. We're actually in the midst of delivering the merchandise. If you click on that, you can actually go and start buying things now. We haven't announced it yet. We're in the process of getting that done by the end of the month. If you wish to purchase something, this is a store. It is not designed to be a method for chapters to obtain swag for their members. So we're not going to permit reimbursements for this. This is for personal use, where individuals can come and grab some merch with our stuff on it. That's ready to go. It's live right now. We've already sold one shirt, I believe. Yep, Martin.
There are two things, and I have, when I heard about it, the communication by the board, but I think for the wider OWASP community, you know that we have problems in the past was said that we are not allowed to sell something or make money via selling goods, right? So can you clarify how this is not a problem anymore?
Okay, it is sort of a problem, but that was actually the discussion topic for further down. I'm very happy for Tom to discuss that right now, because it's probably something that we've got to deal with at some point this meeting. So Tom?
Sorry, you guys were breaking up. Martin, what was your question?
In the past, we had a store, but it was said that we are not allowed to make money through via selling goods.
Mm-hmm.
I think we were allowed to make money, but we weren't allowed to make over $1,000 or something like that, from what I remember.
Exactly. So the question.
Okay. No, I now I understand the question. And Andrew and I had talked about this. So there's two things to keep in mind here. The store, any of the sales from it are what's called unrelated business income. So we have to file a 990T if we have revenue that exceeds the cost of the merchandise. And we've had to do that off and on for the years. I mean, I think the most we ever had to pay was $200 or $300, because we didn't make that much of a profit from it. The other, so there's that aspect of it, and the CPAs take care of that every year. The other threshold that we want to keep an eye on is with the Supreme Court ruling in 2018 through the Sheridan Wayfair Act. We have to be careful not to exceed $10,000 of gross sales, because if we do, we're liable to collect and pay sales tax in whatever state we're selling it. And if we do that, the easiest way to do it, there's a number of companies that you can hire to take care of it. Or Andrew and I were talking about this yesterday. I need to connect with Dawn to see what our current fulfillment house, Conic, has for capabilities, so that we can make sure that we're set. I don't think we're going to be near $10,000 worth of sales this year, but it's something to keep an eye on as we move forward. So it's on my list to connect with you to see what Conic can offer us.
We don't, just so you know, Tom, you might not even know this, none of this that I'll send you over a link of the store. It's a different link than Andrew had set up. It's not through Conic, it's through Zazzle.
Okay.
So I'll explain. Yeah, none of this is through Conic.
Okay. All right. Well, then we need to talk about it. I just want to be prepared if we need to start dealing with it.
Yeah. And for us, for our expenses we have for the store, I also would see that what is additional administrative cost for us as a foundation.
Yeah, it's whatever we pay for, pay for the merchandise. But in the last couple of years, that merchandise is gone for chapter spending, so we're not making any income off it.
Yeah, but I mean, they also have expenses now for the bookkeeping, right? For administration.
Oh, yes, we will, but it's all included in what we do for you all. So
okay, so there will not be separate costs.
Oh
okay.
No. It's all part of our finance and accounting and reporting.
Also on this, Tom, there is no stock. This is all drop ship. So we have no stock
Right.
whatsoever.
Right.
And
And
this-
so when you and I talk about it, Dawn, that's even better because in that case, we don't own the merchandise. So that may also get us out of the sales tax. And I actually have a call next week with a consulting firm that's starting to deal with that. So I'll have some more information on it because I have other clients that are starting to bump up against that.
Okay.
Okay.
So the only thing that worries me is that we start with it without knowing the full impact, apparently. But it's operational, so I don't want to hold up too much about it. Just make sure that OWASP as foundation doesn't have any additional legal or tax risks for that.
I'll
Yes,
keep an eye on the total amount that we've sold. If we get close to 10K and we don't have an answer, we'll pause. Okay.
And Tom, Andrew, that's 10K in revenue, right? So it's like if a shirt costs $12 and we make 3 cents on it, it's that 3 cents, right? That we care about. It's not the 10K in gross sales.
right now it's gross revenue, Jubin. So that's a great question. But even still, we haven't come anywhere near that number in the last 4 or 5 years. But it's something that we again need to be cognizant of. And Martin, you've known me for a long time. That's always my concern, is to make sure that OWASP is protected and compliant. So again, I'll catch up with Dawn. I know we're making a significant increase in effort with regards to this because it can be a source of revenue, for the organization. But we need to make sure that we are covered for the unrelated business income tax, and then now any sales tax from a state perspective. And again, we're looking into it. Well, Don and I will connect before the May meeting, so I'll have an update for you.
Thank you.
At the end of the day, it may be minimal amounts of tax, and if we have to pay tax and it's not overly ridiculous, then we should be paying tax. But let's find out what the actual overheads actually are. So yeah, Dawn and Tom, you could get together. Okay.
Generally, thanks for that. I generally applaud to having Swag again. Perfect.
No worries, good question.
Yeah, so there's Sharif, there is an element further down the agenda which you can now skip over. The chapter reactivation program has been very highly successful, and Lisa will talk about that in the presentation later. Once this is complete on April 30, this is a hard deadline. We will be removing any inactive chapters. You'll hear from Lisa and myself that more or less there may be pain during that time, but we need to concentrate on the people who are doing things and the people who choose not to do things. They can always reapply to restart a chapter with someone else later, but we need to clean this up and we need to get back on track with managing to policy. So Lisa will talk about that and you'll see the statistics. This has been extremely successful. We've had no higher amount of activity for some time. So adhering to policy, getting people to actually do the stuff we need them to do is extraordinarily effective. So just remember that when you come to the presentation. The regional membership drive, sorry?
Sorry, because you mentioned that those chapters, I think that should be an ongoing process. It's not something we do once every 5 years, right?
Because of the way that this has worked, we're going to have to pause on any further reactivation or deactivations, if you like, until, because if they're qualified for it now, they are qualified until April next year. But after that, I fully intend to make sure that this is done every single month, because we can't get to this point again. This is painful because, and it's very visible to many people, because instead of 1 or 2 chapters a month, it's X number of chapters, and Lisa will fill you in on the number. It's much less than we used to have. We're doing a regional membership drive. We've done the brain break in India. We've got May training coming up. I would encourage you to retweet any of the training tweets from the OWASP account as they come up. The membership portal is coming up. If you click on the link, you'll see that this actually exists and it's visible to the board and to staff at this moment. It's got a few little bugs, let's put it that way, but it seems to work. But we need to actually test this system thoroughly to make sure that it's safe. It seems to be so good so far. Okay, so Sharif, talk to Harold. I'm sure that he'll fix that up sometime. This is why we need to figure out the bugs before we go live with that one. So that's due in May, I hope. The event committee, we've got an item on that further down. Won't talk about the event stuff now. The temporary COVID restrictions is almost BAU, but we just need to keep on top of that as the world changes. The conflict of interest policy has gone into draft, so there's a community review process going on at the moment. It's very legalese. It's come from the lawyers. We may need to get the lawyers to review any changes that we make. The expenses policy and events policy got overtaken with other events. We do need to move on that. This is the finance reform. They're the two last policies that have balances. So we will be decommissioning the project spending policy when those two go live as well. So we're not going to be reforming the project spending policy. They just simply come under the grants policy and the expenses policy like everyone else. We've got the outreach charter coming up. Marketing experiments have been very, very, very successful. You'll see that both in the number of activities through Meetup. We were able to, Dawn got us onto a free promotional thing, and we have increased our membership quite dramatically this month. But we're also getting quite a lot of activity through our Google clicks as well. So we've got marketing experiments going on. I had reached out to Virtual last month to get a marketing strategy built. I'm still waiting to hear back on that one. I'm hopeful we'll have that by next month. There is an item on the mission statement coming up. I would expect the next steps is once we've actually worked out what the mission statement is to do, we should be consulting with the community. There is also a partnership evaluation scorecard. I'm working with the outreach committee on this one. If you go into there, yeah. What I'm trying to do is have an objective measure as to whether or not we partner with someone. I get probably 3 to 5 partnership requests a week, and most of them are just simply let us market for free to your members. And we've got a lot more juice than many people. Now, I don't mind that it was a not-profit and they're doing our mission somewhere else in the world and we don't have a great deal of reach there. I'm happy to do that, but it's got to be our mission. So there's a second tab there, Sharif, if you can go to the second tab. Okay, so some basic questions about, is it good for our community? Is it aligned with our mission? Is it something that we can help collaborate with? Because if we're just doing passive marketing for free, this is not any value to us at all. If we can help someone do a keynote, if we can get them a training track, if we can get them with paper selection and improve, you know, the quality of the app set content, the collaboration element really brings the mission into focus. And then co-marketing. This is the element that I have the most struggles with. Is it something that's going to be interesting to our community? If we're constantly promoting someone else's events and not our own, this is bad for us. If we're promoting or trying to get people to attend someone else's events and they don't attend ours, that's bad for us as well. But also there are some very unrealistic expectations from some of these partners as to the number of times we'll promote their event and things like that. We've actually been approached by marketing firms a lot. So what I'd like to do is actually put this into the hands of the outreach committee at some point and come up with a partnership policy. So what we'll end up doing is scoring the partnership requests that come in and then working out if we can do it. Because if we're unable to raise volunteers to staff a desk or to actually put on a talk or help with paper selection, we should not do it. It'll be bad for our reputation. But if it's something that's really important to us, it's really highly strategic, it's something that our members would be interested in or could take advantage of as a member benefit, we should partner, but it's got to be worth it. And that's why all these scores come down. And if you go back to the first page, Sharif, it combines them together. There is a weighting. It is designed to make sure that our mission and our community are the people who have priority. If our mission and our community are behind it, we should almost always do it. But the co-marketing element is what's given full, excitement right now, and that's not okay. We really do need to make it more about our community and more about our mission. Okay. So can we go back to the agenda? Okay, there is an executive director staff report down there. I can probably just step you through it real quick, cognizant of time. There we go. Okay, so as I talked about the KPIs, I'm going to change them. We've reviewed and renewed our directors and officers insurance. This is the first review we've done for some time. So thank you, Tom, for helping us. We now have a $2 million limit. This is a much more realistic figure for today. We haven't adjusted that value for some time. This is safer. We still have problems with the EU entity. There is an EU board meeting coming up. AppSec Australia is another issue. I would like you, if you haven't responded to the private message that I sent everybody, please take the time to do so today. I have another meeting with Daniel on Friday, and we'd like to finalize that by then. In late breaking news, I met with the head of Accenture globally for application security and Vericode's CISO, Chris Weisapol. They are interested in working and collaborating with us and NIST on standards that are going to come from a forthcoming executive order. If this works out, we might be able to get some significant grants to work on taking the ASVS and SAM and possibly the top 10. We don't know what the contents of the executive orders are just yet. They seem to know. We haven't got a copy. They need to do things in a very rapid way. So I'm going to be working on that a little bit, because if we can get a significant grant out of this and then deliver something that makes everybody aware of OWASP, this will be amazing, because that means that everybody in the federal government and everybody who's a contractor or agency will have to deal with us. And that'll be an amazing achievement for our mission. So that will actually take some of my time this month. I would like to thank Lisa for all of the hard work she's been putting in. She's done so much over the last few weeks. You'll see with her presentation. And also Dawn for all the work she's been putting into Merch. It's been hard. And obviously Harold for the membership portal. Lastly, and it is really last, we are working on the trademark stuff. We now have 5 registered trademarks in Australia. We're working on getting the Madrid stuff done. So there'll be some bills with that. On top of that, I think I've mentioned this to some of you before, it costs about $3,000 to send a cease and desist letter. So we need to come up with a trademark process that does not involve lawyers very often. I'd rather make sure that we protect our marks in a very responsibly and fiscally conservative way, rather than just simply going all out, sending cease and desist left, right, and center. We should be trying to work with the people rather than, sending nasty grams to them. And that's it. Any questions?
I wonder about the part you said with the 2 vendors you mentioned. I wonder how far this is operational or something that should be in line with our mission.
Sorry, you broke up just before. What was it in relation to?
Yeah, you said about this grant, and that people who would be in the sector, they have to deal with us and stuff like that. So I wonder how far this is a operational question or a strategic question. So
it's an operational thing, because we need to organize grants, and we need to decompose the executive orders when we receive them, and then organize to get the project leaders on board to do some work, because almost certainly it will be a modification to our existing policies. I see us as being the project manager for this, not necessarily the doer. The project leaders themselves are probably going to be doing the doing. I think at the end of the day, the foundation has a place operationally to manage the finances and to coordinate the deliverables.
To execute it's operational, but if I don't know enough details to see if that's something that's actually in interest of ours. So I would like to hear more. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the meeting went for about 45 minutes yesterday. What I'd suggest, Martin, is when we come to meet with them again, and I think that'll be soon, could I invite you and you could come along, and maybe we'll even have an access to a draft of the executive orders, because I don't know what's in them. I don't know what's required at this point.
Yeah, I think
they are.
Yes, I think somebody of the board should be involved in this. Yeah.
Yep.
So
if you've got an interest, I'll be very happy to include you.
Mark and I was invited to join that as being involved with the education committee, because it'll probably tie into what we're doing there.
Yep.
So there will be
Wonderful.
some representation from the board, but you're welcome to join us.
Thanks.
I will forward the email that summarized our meeting that I sent yesterday that Grant's got to the rest of the board. I'll send it to an internal one at the moment because it's internal discussions. Once it actually becomes a formal thing, we can talk about it more widely.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay. So the next agenda item is just to cover the e-votes that have been voted on between the March board meeting and this board meeting. So there was one motion to requalify candidates to run for election sponsored by Grant and seconded by Jubin. That was had 6 votes of yes, and Vandana abstained as one of the candidates impacted. So thank you. There was a subsidiary motion with regards to single source of truth for membership data, again sponsored by Grant and Jubin. Again, 6 yes and 1 abstain with Vandana. And then with that, I'll turn over to the new business. So there's a motion to approve the outreach committee charter. The sponsor is Grant and seconded by Vandana. It's still marked as tentative. Vandana, is that still the case, or are you sponsoring this motion, seconding the motion rather?
I am seconding the motion.
Okay, so I'll open the floor for discussion, starting with Grant to just provide a quick summary on the motion and to answer any of the board's questions.
Sure. So this is literally just the committee charter for the outreach committee. Essentially, their role is going to be getting our existence and the tools and the things that we provide out to the greater security and developer market space. Primarily developers, because we don't have a great deal of affinity with devs. There are a couple of modifications that I've suggested to the charter itself. Mainly, in fact, they're all 3 are just questions of singulars when there should be plurals or the other way around. But essentially, it's a very clear, concise charter. They're going to bring our mission out to the greater security world.
I also note, thank you, Spiros, and others. Sorry,
yeah.
I don't see the participants, but they're here if you've got questions for the committee.
Maybe they can introduce themselves and a bit of the thing.
Sounds good. Hi, everybody. Spiros here.
Hi, Didar here. That's a really short and sweet introduction, right?
Yes, you can talk more than that, I know. Maybe 2, Dieter.
I'll go first. Okay, I'm Didar Gedici. I'm part of Outreach Committee and Education Committee working on several initiatives and recently a lifetime member going forward. So thank you for the opportunity.
Awesome. I guess I'll go next then. Hi, I'm Spiros. A lot of you know me. I've been an OWASP volunteer since 2011 or something. Yeah, I help with a couple of committees. One of them is the Outreach Committee and a few projects. One of them is the Standards Integration Project, which aims to make OWASP projects and OWASP standards more visible. So it is quite relevant to this committee. And that's all.
I've been the point person for the outreach committee from the staff, and it's been a very active committee, and I really appreciate the hard work they're putting in.
I think it's really neat, something we really need to have, right? We all know that we can preach in front of our own choir, but to have somebody actually proactively preaching other communities, as I see here, really something we need. And thank a lot, Dieter, for doing that. And Spiros, yeah, I know you're always happy with having you on board. Perfect, thanks for that.
Thank you. This is very much appreciated.
Much appreciated, everyone. Okay, so I just want to be mindful of the rest of the board. Does anyone else have any further questions with regards to the community charter? Going once, going twice. Okay, we'll go for a vote. So by order, which I see them, Owen,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Brent,
Absolutely.
Vandana,
Yes.
Jubin,
Yes.
and that's a yes for myself. Congratulations,
you.
everyone, and thank you for all the work that you've been doing on the outreach committee. Okay, so now we move on to comments, announcements, and other business. So Andrew, I know that you had the good standing bylaw changes that you wanted to discuss.
Yeah, so we've been investigating the membership issues with the differences in membership records between the three systems that are involved. What I'd like to do is, I even saw that my own membership record had an incorrect starting date. I don't think we can trust the starting date or the 12-month period for any candidate this election. We will try to resolve this issue with new members and renewing members. We will have to go back with our lifetimes to work out when the lifetimes were done, and that's an ongoing process. But what I'd like to do is just simplify the bylaws. At this time, the board has passed 2 exemptions for various staff members, and it looks like they will continue to do so. So what I'd suggest is, can you make it as simple as possible for us to have a situation where we adhere to Delaware law, which is that essentially a membership organization, the directors should be members, for the directors to obtain sufficient membership to see them throughout their term. And this is evaluated on January 1st, like the first day of their term. That is easy for us to do. That is something that's very straightforward. And they've got 7 days to resolve this problem if they are not a member at that date. This will allow them to have continuous membership over the lifespan of the term, and it reduces the amount of hassle that we've got with notifications, what they don't need to exist, renewals. Only one system needs to be involved in a renewal if it's an auto renewal. And it actually provides equity because anybody who is well known enough in the organization can become a board member without having to first be a member for 12 months. For complementary leaders, this is a bit of a barrier to entry, if you like. And as Bill Corey knows, just because you're a long-standing member doesn't guarantee you a position on the board. You do need to be well known within our organization. So I don't think there's any issues really. If you look back as to who got elected to the board, about the fact that they weren't a member for 12 months. I don't think that's a relevant element. So what I'd like to do is ask you to consider this motion or something very like it for the May board meeting to simplify our bylaws in relation to good standing and to make sure that we only have one system that we need to rely upon, which is the Stripe payment system to process auto renewals. That then takes away any pressure on the directors to maintain their membership during their term. I'm happy to take any questions.
So run this by me again, Andrew. So you have an election, right?
Yep.
Prior to running for that, the current policy is you should have been a member in good standing for the last 12 months. You then run for election. You get voted in. Depending on the time frame, your membership between running for the election to winning in sort of November may lapse, actually all the way to the 1st of January.
Correct.
What will the changes here do?
Okay, so what will happen is instead of Dawn having to check people's credentials as they become candidates when they announce the nomination, And the bylaws ask us to actually prove this on the day of their win. But also we need to then check at the first board meeting. And then we need to continuously check until, like, particularly for the board members who may run for re-election, we need to continuously keep on top of it, which is how Vandana fell through the slip, the problems, and Richard and others before. The problem we've got is that this is not an automatic process, and it does rely upon various systems coordinating with each other and accurate records. I'm not saying that our records can be that are in a state of disarray at the moment because they're just being merged and there's different data from different times. I have concerns about the quality of that data, and I don't want to disadvantage anyone just because of that.
That's fine. We've covered through what I was trying to get an idea is because you've covered a lot. I wanted to just get a run through of what that actually means, right?
So does that mean, does it mean that if I'm not a member for 12 months prior to the election, I can still run for the board? Is that,
yes?
Are we completely removing our guardrails? Because the guardrails were there for a reason, and that was to ensure that that people are invested within the foundation. Because we have also had people that have run for the board and used it for a popularity contest and used it for their CV and not been involved in the board. So we put additional guardrails in, I believe 3 or 4 years ago, Martin, is that correct? As well, because we were getting people that were so popular outside of the foundation that people just voted for them, where they hadn't been active within the foundation for God knows how long. And I believe actually one person wasn't a member at the time that they ran as well. And they had very, very little in their to contribute to the foundation within the 2 years that they were on the board. So I'm not in favor of removing guardrails. I think that people should be part of our community, because then that opens up what's to stop, say, the likes of X company from buying votes. So you end up with vendors then competing, buying votes by getting all their staff to be members, and then you now have a board that's controlled by vendors, by people that are associated with vendors and stuff like that. So there's too many eventualities, and they all appear negative. I do understand your positive comment about systems not aligning and stuff like that, but I would prefer to spend time and align our systems or have a centralized repository. Like this membership issue isn't a new thing. It's been going on since I've been on the board, or since before I've been on the board. So why are we just not fixing the issue and trying to change our
But what I'd like to do, even if you keep the 12-month thing and we sort ourselves out by June, which is sort of possible, I hope. I hope we haven't lost any information. I would still like to simplify when we check, and then to make sure that the directors have continuous membership for their term, because I think part of the problem is that you continuously vote to provide exemptions to this particular policy. Let's make the policy so that you don't need to do exemptions again, by asking people to be members throughout the term. That means they can't fall out of being eligible for a re-election. I think that would be very nice for us to work on, but also extend the grace period so that if there's technical issues or there's not technical, but say, for example, a director's credit card has expired and they don't know, and they need to update it. They've got a period of time to resolve those issues, but it's done very early in the year. We only have to do it once a year, and at the time of the person's election to the board. This will make our life a lot easier from an administrative point of view.
And I understand that. What I'd probably, and I would assume the rest of the board would like to see it too, but like literally a table side by side, what the diff is between what the proposed changes are versus the current changes. I know we can talk through them now, but it's only when we see them side by side that we'll be able to identify what's actually been pulled out and what's not, because there are other guardrails that we put in that you needed to be within the foundation or known by or like somebody standing for you or stuff like that. I can't exactly remember what they are off the top of my head, but I just want to make sure that we're not completely opening it up.
Yeah, I'd second that, just because it's sometimes hard to understand what that actually means with reading a wall of text. And you spend quite a bit of time, Andrew, talking about the justifications for it, but not necessarily what that would look like. And so that's why just walking through the process for
Yeah.
it.
Would
And
anyone
it might
else-
be like, yeah, I was just going to say it might.
a table for you.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say it might be something going forward as well, rather than the big wall of text, that we have a summary if it's in a table, and then if you do need the big wall of text to have it as a backup document or something like that linked. It might be just an easier way for us to, because reading it like that, it's when listening to people talking and stuff like that, gets a bit hard to take it all in, I guess.
Yeah, I totally second what Owen said. We had guardrails in there, and we have to make sure they were there for a reason. We have to maintain them. The other thing is definitely, Andrew, we have to make it easier. Our policy should be to the point and clearly, and not too much exceptions, very strict. As you hear several types of membership called, and it's also, it should be a membership or not membership. To have different types of memberships, I think it's not very beneficial. Either you're a member or not. And if our system, it's still not working, and I know that you're not with AD for 10 years now, but we have a problem generally with our membership platforms we had in the past. So I think that's a good operational thing that we have to fix.
Yeah,
I know that there has not been intention for that. So it's not a blame, but it's yeah.
So you can simplify things by basically saying if you're a member, which also includes corporate members, by the way, because they're a member. The thing is that we need to, if we're going to say that complementary members are also eligible to stand, then there's very little reason to prevent complementary leaders from being complementary leaders whilst they're on the board. How does that show commitment?
But I think we have members or not. So a corporate membership, I thought we don't have anymore because it's not a human, right? It's a legal entity. It's not a company. So corporate members should not be able to be a human entity.
They're still seen as members, Martin, and they have a vote.
No, they have a bunch of votes, but they're not. They have corporate membership. It's not the same as a personal membership, right? Okay, there should be personal membership. But corporate membership actually has been changed by, I think, by Mike back then to corporate, what they called? Not sponsorship instead of membership, right? So I wonder if you still have this membership separately, apparently.
No,
but I thought
corporate members are still in the bylaws.
Okay, so I thought that it should be then individual members. And I think the complementary membership, or this is how we call it, it's 1 year free membership. I think that's something. I think we're all very clear that it's something that should not be there. If we have a long time official membership for external work, we talked about that we said that should be something based on long years external work or long time relationship. Or like, for example, the founding fathers or people who do tremendous work in the several regions. I said as example, I know people in other associations that have been treasurer for 30 years, and for their lifetime achievement, they get a complementary honorable membership. So I think that's something different. So it should be individual members. They only get, it's a honorable membership, as Harold says, but I think it's not in the bylaws yet. But I think the individual membership should be a good one. So it's just it should be simple, individual membership, and not too much detail definition, because we don't need like 10 types of memberships. I think that's really bad. Simplify.
What I'd suggest is, could we get a subcommittee of interested board members to work with me to work through this? And it may not be May.
I'll participate in that, Andrew. And Martin, I think you should too.
I'll put my hand up as well.
Yeah, same here.
Okay, I'll
Can I
circulate and
repeat
send.
it? Who, can you just say who, I know it was Van Dana, who else said they'll be part of the committee?
Grant, Jubin, and hopefully Martin, although I volunteered him.
Okay, thank you.
I'm happy to read. I will not volunteer in working on it, but I will read and ask questions.
I'm happy to move on at this point. I think there's significant issues with this motion. It's not a motion anyway, but let's keep going.
The proposal, but yeah, I mean, the spirit of the intent as well, for, as personal feedback as well to the staff and to you, Andrew, is we also want to make sure that you get a interested board that has skin in the game. We don't necessarily want to give you bad board members through that process as well. The next item is the event committee discussion. So we're aiming to present the finalized event charter and create the events committee next month. This is a short discussion around progress with issues, blockers, and some basic action items that will allow this to be completed next month. So that's over to Andrew and Kelly.
Okay, so Kelly, type up at any time. Essentially, what would I wrote the draft that Owen asked for. I must admit we haven't had a chance to really nut down and make sure that the folks who were invited to join have agreed to be officers, and we still need a board champion. So what I'd like to do is call together a meeting of the interested people who may become officers of the events committee, and someone from the board who could be present, because they're going to have to introduce the committee and the charter and discuss it.
There's a meeting after this one
At 2 o'clock. Yeah.
Yeah, in less than an hour.
Okay.
So I have been, to be honest, I've been chock-a-blocked with work and buying a house and stuff like that. That I haven't been able to be as involved as I wanted to be, which I apologise for. Being honest, but I have been speaking to Grant and Juven, or Grant has been speaking to Juven. It's kind of, and the three of us were going to try and be more involved in it going forward. But I was planning on attending the meeting in less than an hour, and I believe the three potential officers that are going to be there.
Okay.
Is that right, Kelly?
Yes.
Yeah.
The main thing is that please make sure that everyone's on board with the charter. It's literally a copy and paste of the chapter charter, I think, made for events. It may have things that aren't relevant. It may be missing things. I don't know. But also, they're going to be taking over the events handbook, which is called Events in a Box. And to a certain degree, there will be at some point a need to look at the way we do budgeting for small, virtual, and larger regional events. I think it's a little bit complicated at the moment, and we need to make sure that those events have a minimal amount of administrative overhead, because it's also work for us as well as the people trying to apply for it. So, Martin, I think you remember when you were trying to run the Benelux Day and the amount of work that is required for something that didn't have any expenses. We want to simplify that a great deal, and I think the event committee could actually assist a great deal with that.
Yeah. Andrew, just so everyone knows too, the event committee officers, the committee charter has been shared with them, and they've been asked to read it, make any comments, suggestions. So we'll see where that is at 2 o'clock this afternoon.
Kelly, is there any way that you could share that charter with Juven and I? And if it's at all possible, is there any way for us to push the meeting out a little later so that I have some time to look at it?
So I'm not the one who chose the time. It was David, Erlin, and Kathy who actually decided on this time, and that works best for them. I just told them to let me know when it was, and I would make myself available. So I know it might be a little bit too late for today, but maybe next week we can look at scheduling a different time so we all can, something that's convenient for everybody. But yes, the charter, I will share that with you as well.
I'm going to add them to the events shared drive, so it will.
Okay.
Okay, you should have an invite in your email to access the shared drive.
Okay. So have we finished the discussion on the events committee? And the follow-ups are in the call. All right. So next up is presentation from Lisa. Over to you.
Just make Lisa a presenter. You're muted, by the way, Lisa.
Hey, Lisa, you're still on mute.
Yes, I'm just trying to find where because you guys all popped up, where to share this.
Down the bottom, just move your mouse around the bottom, like wave it over the top of us, and then you'll see our share screen. It's green.
In the middle of the page.
Yeah, I have that, but where are the slides? And are they in the agenda, or do you want me to share them from locally?
Just share your screen. If you want, I can share the slides. You just tell me when to go forward if you wish.
No, I got it. Okay. Let me just pull them up. Sorry. You know what, Andrew, you could share them because I don't want to.
Okay. Share.
I'm working off two computers. I'm working on the laptop for the Zoom and the Pixel book for my regular work.
I've got to get on the right screen. Can you see this presentation now?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So you can go to the next slide. So this was the membership initiative that we've been working on. In March, we had the 2-year membership special, which ran for the month of March. Overall, we had 340 new 2-year members, both regional and regular price. One was the 75 and the 30. Then, which we compared to the APSAC California renewal that was going to occur at the end of March, which had 291 members. So the goal was to cover that for the month of March. 11 of those individuals did renew during that time frame. We did have a special campaign that we sent out to those specific individuals that were tagged from APSAC Cali. For the complimentary membership that we've initiated for leaders, we've only had 10 leaders take advantage of that opportunity as of 4/26/2021, and we currently have currently on the website 811 chapter and project leaders. So we haven't really had a big uptake of that opportunity that they were looking for. It is posted on the membership on the internet, on the website, for all to read. It's open to the public, so they're welcome to just plug in and go. The other regional membership pricing, we expanded to all of the levels. So students, 2-year and lifetime. We've actually seen a pretty sizable lifetime increase, which was nice to see for the regional pricing at $200. And but the rest of them were still struggling, but we're still marketing it. And this month we're doing the current regional membership discount for the month of April. That just kicked off on 4/20 and it'll run to the end. That is just a $5 discount off of the already 60% off the regional pricing. So you can switch the, and on the right side was the chart of, we charted the membership revenue year after year since 2005. To give you a picture. So the chapter reactivation initiative, which Andrew kind of was speaking to earlier, the basic requirements is nothing outlandish. It's what we've required for an active OWASP chapter. 2 leaders, create, migrate, update your chapter repository page so you're discoverable. And Andrew just asked for a minimum of 1 meeting for the past 15 months. And always, and I looked back year after year over the chapter handbooks, and now currently the chapter policy is date, time, location, or URL must be posted on your OWASP chapter page. So currently we still have 26 people or 26 chapters that have not completely migrated their chapter page. And that's since January of 19, sorry. I've worked with 24 chapters to get them reactivated, explaining some of the standard requirements and criteria that, from what I can tell, year after year since 2005, have not changed for a chapter. The audit over all of the chapters has not been completed because it is manual currently. We need to get back to managing to the policy and the standard. Just trying to locate activity sometimes is very time consuming because they don't update their OWASP chapter pages. So if we can go back to managing to policy, that will be helpful. And then hopefully Harold can automate some of them to show who's active and who's not. But currently it's a manual process. You could change it.
So just real quick, one of the slides here does not contain the number of chapters because I don't think it's an active, without understanding the number of active chapters, I don't think it's a useful metric, whereas members, RSVPs, those sorts of things is going to be really much more important for us going forward. Go ahead.
So these are the uptick in meetup members. And obviously because Andrew has instituted a deadline for the 1 meeting, you'll see that the meetup members have increased as well as the RSVPs and the meetings on the next slides. So April has grown, huge, exponentially. And actually, as Andrew had noted, that April for this month has been the largest increase that we've seen in a long time. RSVPs, people using the meetup so they don't get deactivated.
Also, RSVPs are chapter members who weren't serviced by leaders who were inactive. So essentially what I'm asking, and what I think is really important to note here is that because we have fewer chapters who are more active, holding more meetings, the pent-up demand for RSVPs from our community is suddenly showing itself. Yes. This is why we should be concentrating on the people who are doing the right thing and deprioritizing everyone else who's not doing the right thing. Anyway, did you want to go forward?
I have a quick question. The RSVPs, are these for just chapter meetings or what are these?
This is actually the total number of RSVPs through Meetup. If we've held any virtual events through Meetup and a Meetup alone, then yes, it'll include the virtual event.
That includes this stuff. So this is all groups, not just chapters. It's like the foundation group, the project groups. So there's a big uptake in April from the promo they did.
Yep. Okay.
So yeah, marketing has definitely helped us attract new people to come to us, but also people are RSVPing, and with virtual events, we expect a 30% show rate. And so even though there's like 6,000 people who joined and wanted to be RSVPing, we're probably going to expect 2,000 to actually turn up. But even then, that is way more than we would have had in previous months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what the results showed from the chapter reactivation was we had a lot of chapters, but a lot of them were not doing or not holding meetings. So we have to watch our quantity versus quality. I think, as Andrew stated, we want quality over quantity. Automation is key, especially since we are growing and we're over 200 chapters, to manually audit those when they are not, they don't have a standard and not, updating their OWASP chapter page and trying to locate their activity and, make sure that they're vendor neutral. Automate, doing it manually is just not manageable. We need to be consistency as far as we have to apply the policy and the rules and the standards to everybody. Somewhere along the line, I looked back over, again, the chapter handbooks I dug out. Meetup was chosen as the official event planning application, I guess you would say, because of its API and mirror capability to transpose the activity from the Meetup group to the OWASP page to meet the criteria. But that got lost in the translation because a lot of the chapters, even today, do not put the front matter code into their chapter repository. So that is done automatically. So that's key to, to using Meetup Pro that we're paying for. It was, chosen for that reason, so that the leader doesn't have to manually update their page, but they're skipping that last step. And then managing to policy. I mean, now we reduced the number of meetings that they need to have is down to 3. So if 3 meetings on the chapter, their OWASP chapter page is going to drive our traffic, which Kelly uses for our sponsors, and then we're going to use for our grants. And our OWASP website is the face of our foundation. And it was very disheartening to hear leaders say, I don't use the OWASP webpage. And that I could see because they didn't know about any of the new policies or procedures. They didn't know really, well, a lot of people, I didn't know how to use GitHub, but they just, they are using their own social media platforms to manage OWASP outside of our foundation. And then, you find out what's going on when you start looking through things. I found out that, there is some complaints about some fake competitions taking places and people not getting awards. We have other chapters like China that have their own separate chapter page and they're doing their own thing and collecting money, and I don't know kind of what's going on there. We have some more issues with Chile again and Vina Del Mar, and so I just think we need to get back to OWASP website as a single source of truth.
Yeah, I think that it all comes down to one thing: community management, right? I think it's very clear with such global organization we are, a global community. We still have no community manager what we had in the past. Definitely what you say, we have the website for a reason. If it's Eventbrite, and I know that my chapter is skilled for that, and thank you for sending the information. That means, we have our connector. I haven't seen that for a while. I don't know if it's me, but we have to update them and remind them. And we need a community manager, because things you said, there is a reason why they're not using that. And if you can't use GitHub, there are other options to help less technical people use GitHub. So I think that the urgency, definitely in these times with less physical meetings, to have a community manager is, I think, very seriously. Yeah.
Just a quick note on this, Martin. I know you have one more thing to point out, but just a quick correction. There was we deliberately got rid of the connector. The information is still there as blog posts. It's just that they deliberately removed the connector because of such poor engagement. We can see the numbers of people who are actually opening it and reading it. It is actually, they are updates on the website instead.
How can you see who's opening and reading it by email? that's not really a reliable source because I many times read the connector and not all the other way else than on the email.
So MailChimp, if you use a modern email client, will actually be able to detect if you've opened the email. The problem we've got with that is, not everybody uses or permits those to go through. And so what will happen is that we only saw, we would send the connector out to OWASP members, not the entire community. Many of our leaders aren't members. On top of that, only 270 odd people would open a connector on any given month. We now have, on an average blog post, over 4,000 hits. And these are organic, actual people, not that Google recognizes as people and not bots. So the reality is nearly 100 times more people open it. And then on top of that, then we can get it out to everybody, including those who are not members.
Okay, but then the next point is the other point I had, definitely the connector. So this outgoing, proactive approach to our community, and that's the point we need a community manager. The other point is on slide 2. I'm kind of confused with the numbers, Lisa, because they said membership initiative resource, and you see the numbers of membership, and we have a membership income, and I think that's the resource. They look like they are the individual memberships income. And we have a total paid members of 3,819. I assume that will be individual members. And we have an income that's above 500,000 US dollars. So I wonder, is it all memberships, including corporate memberships, or what do I miss?
Yes. It's the number that's reported in the year-end close. So this is the number that we report to the IRS. So the number you see there for 2019 is the number that's in our audited financial statement, and it incorporates both corporate sponsorship and individual membership.
So it's mixed in two data. One is the individual membership, and the other one is the total membership income. I think it's correct. Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
Sorry.
that makes more sense. Thanks.
And just for, I mean, my one of my responsibilities is community membership and community managers. And what I've noticed is that I am reaching out to these individual chapter leaders several times over the 15 months. 54 of them never responded back. So I know with the pandemic, there was an issue, but it seems that when there was a deadline posed by Andrew, we got response. And then if it could, when you're supplying information, if they don't read it, there's nothing we can really do.
Yeah, it's definitely not a blame. We have always that it's very independent if you're a membership or how involved you are with the OWASP Foundation to do your stuff, either project or chapter. And I think it's a bad thing. So we know all the uproar when we said you should be a member when you be participating in OWASP. And I think it's really weird because it's just saying from, yes, I acknowledge to be an OWASP member because I am here for the community. So yeah, I know the problem, Lisa, and it's two-folded, but I think the dedication is a bigger problem. It's not that it's you, but it's a full-time job. And I can imagine with other obligations you have, it's a special trait and it's really hard, definitely these times. So, thanks.
So at some point, I'd like to, there will be some pain at the end of this month. I will not lie. We've already seen people come out and talk to us for the first time in a long time. They haven't met the guidelines, and there will be pain as some of these people are deactivated. And as I said before, they can always start a new chapter again with someone else, with a second leader, after this has happened. But we need to get to managing to policy. We can't keep on having problems like old country chapters that haven't met for 4 years, trying to continue to exist. They don't work. And there's a lot of problems with a lot of those things. We really do need to get to the bottom of a regional membership model, so that essentially we end up with less problems in certain communities where people are trying to be the boss of others, because it's incredibly damaging. And I'd rather not have any regional chapters at all if we can't solve this problem. because it's really harming our presence in certain Latin America, certain Asia Pacific countries, and other places as well, where regional chapters are just pathologically bad, just terrible. And we need to manage the policy, and we don't have any policy whatsoever for regional chapters. So what I'd like to do is, once we've got this sorted, I want to start work on the regional chapter problem. And I also need us to start managing to policy so we don't end up with 20 or 30 or 40 chapters. This is, by the way, down from over 130 chapters when we started. And we've had a very healthy increase in activity. And it shows you, by getting people to do the right thing, following our policy, more activity, people are attending the meetings. It works when we follow policy. It's really important for me that we actually try to automate that.
Yeah, definitely. I know that in the past we had some, OWASP as foundation had some restrictions. Like I know that we had a budget, otherwise you will cut down to $5,000, stuff like that. And then it never followed up. So definitely when you announce something, you say, this line we are going, and people are supplying, then you don't punish those who did the work by not following up otherwise at the end. It's not helping, because the people just will ignore it because there will come something else. It's like bad parenthood. Say 5 times this is last time, and you said for the 5th time, doesn't work. Like we act like kids in this part. It's like I see the recognition in Harold's face, like he's also daddy. The other thing is the regional chapters. We don't want to throw away the goods with the bads, right? As we say in Germany, don't throw away the baby with the bathtub. There are regional chapters where it works, and they should also not be punished for those it doesn't work.
What we're trying to do is get the chapter committee to actually run through and interview all of the regional chapters to find out what's good and bad about their own models. But we also need to protect those who have a regional chapter and city chapters who are being bullied by the regional chapter.
You cannot have both. Yeah, I think to have both in one country, to have a country with having a regional chapter, and within this regional chapter area having a local chapter, city chapter, that makes no sense, right? I think we have seen that it's ridiculous. So either go one way or the other way, but to have both in one area, that's, for example, if there would be, I have the OWASP Netherlands chapter and there would be an Amsterdam chapter, it will be ridiculous. That's something that cannot work, right?
Well, this is where the work of the chapter committee needs to come in and interview the people, find out what can work. We need to get to a place where we can write policy about regional chapters. At the moment, we don't have any framework.
Yeah. Good.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. The next item is with regards to agenda and scheduling for the next executive session. And usually we have 2 face-to-face meetings a year. We've had basically, thanks to due to COVID, we would meet in longer sessions virtually. We've had one in the beginning of the year, but the question is, do we want to have potentially an intermediary one in May, and then somewhat another one in the end of the year, or just basically at the halfway point set up another longer executive sessions with the board?
I think that we have by bylaw regulation for twice a year, isn't it? Or was it one time a year? So we have an exemption for this. Thanks. So we have an exemption for all. So I would think that instead of physical, first for pandemic. The second one is I would vote for having one in June latest and one for in September, October. I think October that would be good.
Well, we've already done one, so so technically that would be 3, Martin. So
I know.
So just in case, I couldn't see your fingers.
I don't need my fingers to count to 3. You know, I can count to 3 with just my hand.
I didn't know whether he was going to bite my head off there, or but are we? So I guess what you're really saying is, do we want a meeting of substance where we're spending multiple weekends? Like, so the way we did it in January or whatever it was, that we had 2 spread over 2 weekends, so that if there was elements that we needed to read up on after the first one, that we could follow up on at the next weekend. So, but are you talking about having 2 more meetings?
Yeah, I think normally if we meet physical, we meet more than a day, right? That's a full day. Normally we have 2 full working days at least. Now we have less than a full day, like 8 hours. I think that's too short, what things we have in place. So that's why
So,
I
yeah.
not fully counted this one, the last one, as a full replacement, right?
Yeah. So it's been documented loosely as an executive session. So the question is not necessarily how at the moment, but at what frequency do we want to? Do we want to continue on just having one? Because we've had a smaller one in the beginning of the year. Do we want to have two smaller ones as well? And Owen, to your point, they could be over two sessions with, you know, a period in the middle, or they can be like one big gulp. But the intent is, do we want to have multiple sessions going forward for this year at least? Because we had a smaller one at the beginning of the year, or do we want to just have one other session later time in the year?
I think for the time difference we have, like the most extreme part are Chupin and Vandana, if I'm not mistaken. A long session, a long like 8-hour session makes no sense because one of the other will either not be awake or will be asleep halfway the session, right?
Yeah.
So I would vote to have like I would propose to have at least 2 more shorter sessions. Maybe I like that idea from Owen. So we do it again, like 2 weekends, like 1 day a weekend. That's a good one. 6 hours, like 4 hours was it? Yeah.
I would say though, don't sacrifice it for my time zone. I'm more than happy to do an overnight. It really doesn't bother me that much if you guys wanted to just get it done in one session.
It's also the effectiveness that you don't bother, but you also get you're a human being too, even if you're still young.
I also think that 8 hours in a row looking at Zoom isn't going to be beneficial to us. So like we all have Zoom fatigue at this stage, so we need to get the most out of it. Whereas a smaller session, we'd be able to have some actions and then follow up on those actions in between. So it doesn't have to be 2 weekends in a row, but as Sharif mentioned, it could be one, say, in May, June, and then one in September, so that we have time in between in order to. Does that make sense? Or like?
I mean, I prefer. I mean, the first one is I'd rather have a session charitably as 2 half days, for example. Just simply because it was really productive to have like a stop between the 2 meetings and to digest and be prepared for the second call. The other thing is I would treat that as an individual meeting rather than like a 2-part meeting, essentially. If I'm being greedy, and I know I'm being a little bit greedy here, but I'd like to have 2 of those types of 2-parters this year. So potentially 1 in June and then potentially 1 in October. And again, I want to be respectful of everyone's time and also want to hear what everyone else thinks.
I think I also agree with it, because if it's a long session, it's hard to gulp everything and then come up with things. And people will fall apart after a few hours. So it's better to have 2 sessions rather than 1 session. And as Martin said, that to consider the time zones and everything else also, it's better that we keep short meetings than the huge big ones. Like if we are meeting in person, then it's totally fine. But it's all remote and we have to be on the screen. So it makes a difference.
So why don't we put that to a vote on Doodle, essentially. Andrew would just work on like a series of options. And then based on the options, then we sort of agree on dates and when in the year we should have them. So one vote basically agrees on the format, and then the subsidiary vote is basically on the time as to when we would want to have them.
I find it funny that the Sheriff is greedy in actually asking the same what I propose. Thank you, Sheriff.
Okay, so I just want to highlight the fact that the EU board needs to meet at the end of May, so that might restrict our options in May. So it's probably more likely to be June. Is that okay?
Dawn, sorry.
Just quick, according to board votes, which obviously pandemic is different, the board is supposed to have 2 face-to-face meetings each year. And the virtual meeting, I think it's 4 hours for the newly elected, does not count as the face-to-face, that's separate.
Yeah,
For
that's
January.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So technically, we're not going to be able to do that. First of all, because it's too face to face. So we might need to reword it or update or do a new motion just to update that to face to face, or in the event where we can't, just because we are breaking it. We did technically break it last year as well.
Yeah. In any case, you know, we're almost out of time, and I just want to make sure that nothing's off the table. We just agree on an approach that makes the most sense. And I agree, Owen, we should probably look at small update to the bylaws just to emphasize it.
Yeah, cool. When I wrote it, I just assumed that we were always going to be face to face. So, yeah.
What? You didn't predict pandemics, Owen? That's terrible.
No, never. I
Lack of
was
foresight.
enjoying. Yeah. No, going forward, everything will have about 20 different clauses in it. So
Martin's going to hate the exceptions, except if there's a pandemic.
One of the exceptions will be except if Martin can make it. So
Yeah, but they should be kept as exceptions, not exceptions as a rule, right? Brent, you are as worse as I am. Come on.
I know. It's just easier to point the finger at someone else rather than at
yourself. Yeah, always the small Germans. I know. I think that's still recorded, so keep it business.
Okay. With that, I'll motion to adjourn the board meeting.
I'll second it.
So,
heard it.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great evening. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Can I borrow you for a few minutes?
Yep, I've got a 12 o'clock, but yes.